Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
I am. Let's do it.
Awesome. So today we're cracking open Atomic Habits by James Clear. Have you heard of it?
Oh, yeah. This is a classic in the self-improvement world.
Yeah.
It's all about those little everyday habits, and how they can totally transform your life over time.
Right. It's like mind-blowing to think that just a 1% improvement each day.
Can make you like 37 times better in a year.
Exactly. 37 times better. That's what I learned from the super insightful episode of the Must Reads podcast, which, by the way, is going to be our guide for this deep dive.
Must Read. It's a great podcast, always giving those clear, concise summaries.
Totally agree. Okay, so before we get ahead of ourselves, let's rewind a bit. Atomic habits. What's the big deal with habits anyway?
Well, they're kind of like the building blocks of our lives, right? Like, think about it. Most of what we do each day.
Is pretty much on autopilot.
Exactly. Brushing our teeth, driving to work, checking our phone's habits.
Yeah.
And they can either make us or break us, depending on whether they're good or bad.
That's a great point. So in Atomic Habits, James Clear talks about this thing called the habit loop.
Oh, yeah, the habit loop. That's key to understanding how habits work. Basically, it's a four-stage cycle. It starts with a cue, something that triggers the habit.
Okay, so like let's say I see a plate of cookies on the counter. That's my cue.
Exactly. Then comes the craving, the desire for the reward that the habit offers. In your case, it'd be the deliciousness of those cookies.
Yum. And then, of course, there's the response. That's the actual habit itself, like me grabbing a cookie and...
And devouring it.
Yeah.
And finally, the reward. That's the good feeling you get from eating the cookie, which reinforces the habit.
Ah, the dopamine rush. Makes sense. But how does understanding this loop actually help us change our habits?
Well, because once you know your cues, you can start to either avoid them.
Or swap them out for something better?
Exactly. Like if your phone is your cue for mindless scrolling, maybe put it in a different room when you need to focus.
I need to try that. Okay, so we've got the habit loop down. But James Clear doesn't stop there. He also gives us these four, golden rules for changing our habits. He calls them the 4 laws of behavior change.
Right. And these are super practical, actionable tips. The first law is make it obvious.
Make it obvious. Okay, what does that mean?
It's about manipulating your environment to make good habits more, well, obvious, and bad habits less so.
Like, if I'm trying to drink more water, should I keep a big water bottle on my desk?
Yes. Out of sight, out of mind. Right. The book also suggests things like putting your workout clothes out the night before.
So you're more likely to exercise in the morning?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The second law is make it attractive. This is where things get fun.
Fun! I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
This is where temptation bundling comes in. The idea is to pair something you need to do with something you want to do.
Like only letting myself watch Netflix while I'm on the treadmill.
Bingo. Suddenly, exercise becomes way more appealing. The third law is make it easy.
Make it easy. That sounds right up my alley.
This is all about reducing friction, making your good habits as effortless as possible.
So instead of trying to run a marathon on my first day,
Start with a 5-minute walk.
and then slowly build from there. Makes sense. Okay, what's the last law?
Make it satisfying.
Okay, that one feels important. If it doesn't feel good, why bother, right?
Right. The book talks about using rewards to reinforce your habits. And not necessarily big rewards either.
Like maybe just checking a box on a habit tracker.
Exactly. That simple act of marking your progress can give you a little hit of dopamine and make you more likely to stick with the habit. So those are the 4 laws. Pretty cool, huh?
They're super helpful, and they all work together to create this powerful system for change. Now, the Must Reads episode also shared this really cool story about someone who lost a ton of weight by applying these principles.
Oh, yeah. And what's amazing is they didn't do anything drastic. No crash diets or crazy workouts.
Just small, consistent changes like swapping soda for water.
And cooking more meals at home.
And over time, those seemingly tiny changes added up to huge results.
That's the power of the compound effect. It's like investing, right?
Yeah.
Small contributions, consistently made, lead to big returns over time.
I love that analogy. Makes so much sense. Okay, so we've got the basics, the habit loop and the 4 laws. But there's so much more to Atomic Habits.
There is. We barely scratched the surface.
Right. We haven't even talked about things like habit stacking and implementation intentions and all these other cool techniques.
Oh, we've got so much more to explore.
We do, but we'll have to save that for the next part of our deep dive. Stay tuned, everyone. We'll be back in a flash.
See you soon. All right, welcome back. I'm ready to dive back into these habit hacking techniques from Atomic Habits.
Me too. That last part, I feel like we just laid the groundwork,
Yeah, this
the
thing.
habit loop, the 4 laws.
Exactly, the foundations. But now let's get to the real nitty-gritty. How do we actually put these ideas into practice?
Okay, so we briefly mentioned habit stacking before the break.
Yeah, habit stacking, it's super simple, but so effective.
So remind me, what's the basic idea again?
Basically, you take a new habit you want to build and you uh, attach it to an existing habit, something you already do automatically.
Okay, I think I get it, but can we have an example? A real life one.
Of course. Let's say you always make a cup of coffee first thing in the morning.
Oh yeah, guilty as charged.
Right. So let's say you also want to start meditating each day.
Which I know I should.
Well, instead of trying to find a whole new time slot for meditation,
Just tack it onto the coffee routine.
exactly. Make your coffee, then meditate for 5 minutes. Boom.
Hmm.
Habit stacked.
Make coffee, meditate. It's like a little mantra. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I'm already feeling more organized.
And that's just one example. You can use habit stacking for anything.
Anything. Well, I do always forget to take my vitamins.
Perfect. Put your vitamins right next to your coffee maker. You make coffee, you see the vitamins, you take the vitamin.
Okay, yeah, it's like building these little chains of good habits throughout the day.
That's exactly it. And over time, those little chains become powerful routines.
I'm starting to see how these seemingly small changes can really add up.
They absolutely do. And, there's another technique in the book that I think is super helpful for solidifying those habits.
Okay, what is it?
It's called implementation intention.
Implementation intention, huh? Sounds kind of complicated.
No, it's actually pretty simple. It's basically about removing the decision-making from your habits. Instead of vaguely saying, I'm going to exercise more,
You get specific.
yes, you create a plan. You say, I'm going to go for a 20-minute run every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m. in my neighborhood park.
Oh, I see. So it's like pre-committing to the habit.
Exactly. You're taking the guesswork out of it. No more should I, shouldn't I debates in the moment.
Less decision fatigue.
Yes. You've already made the decision, so you just follow the plan.
I love that. It's like setting yourself up for success on autopilot. And
Yeah.
speaking of setting yourself up for success, what about habit tracking?
Oh yeah, habit tracking is huge. It keeps you accountable, helps you see your progress.
And it can be pretty motivating too, right?
Totally. The Must-Reads episode talked about those visual trackers, like crossing off days on a calendar.
Oh, those are so satisfying.
They are. But, any system that works for you is great. Some people prefer to keep a journal. Others might use a spreadsheet or an app.
Right. Whatever keeps you engaged and on track. And you know what else I love about Atomic Habits? It doesn't make habit building feel like this, like chore.
Yeah. Clear really emphasizes making your habits enjoyable.
Which makes sense because if you're dreading it, you're way less likely to stick with it, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
If you hate running, don't force yourself to run.
Find something you actually enjoy.
Exactly. Maybe dancing or hiking or swimming, whatever floats your boat.
Oh, I like that analogy. And there's one more concept from Atomic Habits that I think is super powerful, and that's the idea of environment design.
Environment design. Such a game changer. It's all about setting up your surroundings to support your good habits.
Okay, so how does that actually work? Can you give me some examples?
Sure. Let's say you're trying to cut back on snacking. Well, the first step might be to, remove all the tempting snacks from your kitchen.
Oh, out of sight, out of mind, right.
Exactly. Or let's say you want to read more. Create a cozy reading nook with a comfy chair and good lighting.
Make it inviting.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all about making those good habits as frictionless as possible.
And making the bad habits more difficult.
Exactly. And you know what's great about environment design? It works even when your willpower is low.
Because you've already made the healthy choice, the easy choice.
You got it. So those are just a few more of the practical techniques from Atomic Habits. Pretty cool stuff, huh?
Yeah, I'm definitely getting some great ideas for my own life.
I am too. And, it's all about taking action. What's one small change you can make today, listener? What's one little tweak to your environment that will nudge you toward your goals?
Yeah, think about that. We'll be right back with the final part of our deep dive. All right, we're back. And I have to admit, all this talk about building better habits, it's making me feel a little bit, I don't know.
A little overwhelmed?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
What if I mess up? What if I can't keep up with all these new habits?
Well, first of all, it's totally normal to feel that way. Nobody's perfect, right?
Right.
And Atomic Habits actually talks a lot about this, like how to deal with setbacks. Because let's face it, they're going to happen.
They are. I mean, life happens. You get busy, you get stressed.
Exactly. So the key is to not let those slip-ups totally derail you.
Okay, easier said than done, though, right? Like, how do you actually bounce back from those moments when fall off the wagon?
Well, one thing Clear emphasizes is avoiding that all-or-nothing thinking.
Oh, yeah, the I ate one cookie, so I might as well eat the whole bag mentality.
Exactly. That's a trap.
Mm.
Just because you miss a workout or, indulge a little doesn't mean you failed.
Okay, so no beating myself up. Got it. But still, like, how do you get back on track after a slip up?
Well, one thing that can be really helpful is having a plan. Like, think about what your triggers are.
Triggers, like what makes me more likely to slip up?
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, maybe you're more likely to overeat when you're stressed.
Oh, 100% me. Stress eating is my superpower.
Right. So your plan might be, like, when I feel stressed, I'm going to take 5 deep breaths, go for a walk, or call a friend instead of reaching for the chips.
So it's like having a predetermined response ready to go.
Yes. That way you're not just reacting emotionally in the moment. You've already thought it through.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And what about like support systems? Can those help too?
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
Having people in your corner cheering you on, it can make a huge difference.
It's like having your own personal cheer squad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, sometimes just knowing that someone else is, like, checking in on your progress can be enough to keep you accountable.
Accountability is huge. Okay, so we've talked about what to do when we stumble, but we've covered so much ground today in this deep dive. What's the big takeaway here? What do we really want our listeners to walk away with?
That's a great question. I think the biggest thing is that building better habits, it's not about perfection. It's about progress.
Right. It's about those small, consistent actions, those 1% improvements that over time add up to big change.
Exactly. And anyone can do it. It doesn't matter where you're starting from. What matters is that you start.
Yes. Love that. So, to our amazing listeners, think about what you've learned today. What's one tiny change you can commit to starting today?
It could be anything. Drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning, taking a 5-minute walk at lunch.
Meditating while your coffee brews.
Exactly. Whatever it is, make it small, make it achievable, and make it something you can stick with.
And remember, we're all on this journey together. Every small step counts. So keep going, keep experimenting, keep learning, and you'll get there.
You will. And if you want to keep exploring these ideas, definitely check out Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's such a great book.
It is. It's full of practical advice and inspiring stories. All right, that's a wrap for our deep dive into atomic habits. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
It was great to be here. Until next time.
Yeah.